popular demand. This is the Turnbucklepad Podcast on YouTube.com. Respect wrestling or get out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and listeners around the world, thanks for coming back. This is the Turnbucklepad, and we are coming back at you with the Turnbucklepad Podcast Season 2. And this time around, one of our goals throughout the previous seasons is that we wanted to get involved with another company and just work with just one company to see what kind of storylines, characters, what new things can we find elsewhere. And one of my guests in the last season, Mr. Trent Nitro, suggested to me to talk to a company by the name of Warzone Wrestling. And I'm not that familiar, but I'm getting familiar just very quickly, and I'm sure you guys will as well. So today I want you guys to welcome my first guest to the first episode of this season. He is the owner and promoter of Warzone Wrestling. Give it up for Jay Mays. Jay, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Good to be here.
So we know there's a lot of independent companies out there, and there's a lot of different things in different places. What are some of the things that Warzone brings? What unique things can we expect or hope to see coming to see a Warzone show?
Well, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is having the Warzone match. And what that is a match we have at just about every show. We usually have one Warzone match. And a Warzone match consists of basically, it's a no-holds-barred match. No disqualifications. The match goes to a finish. So a lot of times during those matches, the action can take place all over the arena, and sometimes weapons get involved, and other interesting things may happen as well.
So I think it's safe to assume that you guys have no problem with someone bleeding during a match.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Occasionally it does. Myself, in the very first Warzone match I competed in, and I ended up bleeding. Guy hit me over the head with a guitar and busted my head open. So what can you do about that?
Long live rock and roll, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit more. How long has Warzone been around? How did it all start?
Well, we started a little over a year ago. And basically what happened was I was wrestling for this one company, and I got burned out on professional wrestling, decided to take a break, and ended up getting a booking against my old tag team partner, Trent Nitro. And when we go to that show, it turns out Matt and Jeff Hardy were sitting there in the front row at that show. They bought tickets, and they were cheering us and booing us and getting into it. And so it kind of inspired me to keep going a little bit. And then about a month later, I got another offer. And so me and Trent go and we wrestle again. And then after the third time we wrestled, we decided, well, we need to have our next match in Fayetteville. So we decided to book a bunch of other wrestlers, and we started Warzone Wrestling that day.
Very cool. So was it something that did a lot of people take to it really quickly? I mean, how fast were people trying to jump on board?
As far as talent, very quickly, actually. A lot of them, we were blessed. We were blessed by knowing some of the best talent throughout the Mid-Atlantic area, and they have come out in spades. At this point, we're one of the more difficult shows to get on, because we pride ourselves on having the best talent, and that's what we try to do. We have some of the top guys throughout the industry. A lot of our guys have either been or are going to Ring of Honor and WWE soon.
So with Warzone, I mean, everybody evolves from somewhere, and granted, just kind of fell in your lap. Did you have a vision of using like traditional values of bringing the company up, or were you trying to use more of the modern new age company to bring the company up?
Well, it's a little bit of a mix and match of both. We certainly have a lot of technicians on our roster. We have a lot of high-flying guys as well. So and a lot of times, those guys actually work good together. It's about a mix of styles in wrestling is what, in my opinion, makes for some of the best matches.
That's pretty cool. Because it seems like a lot of places now in wrestling, anybody thinks they could be a pro wrestler, and some of them get more luckier than they should. And you hate to see someone's dream get crushed, but it's like, this may not be for you. There's other things to do in wrestling besides being a wrestler.
Absolutely. And that's another one of our things is our guys, they look like wrestlers. You look at our flyers, every one of them look like a professional wrestler.
Well, good. They take it seriously then, I hope.
Absolutely. And there's more that goes into it to being a wrestler than just what you do in the ring. It's how you carry yourself out of the ring, just the way you look, and also other things, the way you communicate with the crowd,
right,
and the way you're able to entertain the paying audience.
Very true. Very true. Do you think it's easier now to make unbelievers true believers in wrestling now, as it was opposed to like years ago? Back in the day, it's like people were really set saying, no, it's fake, it's fake. But now that it's exposed, do you think that kind of like drove more people to watch it or took away from it?
Well, honestly, to me, the word fake is fighting words. And I say that because, I've had 12 stitches put in my head. I've known other people get hurt, and injuries can happen.
Oh, yes, they can.
And it is definitely a contact sport. It's going there in a ring with somebody, and you try your best to walk away, but that does not always happen.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate when it comes to those circumstances. So,
It does.
I mean, some promoters will capitalize it.
Every week, so things happen.
Yeah, and I know when it comes to business, sometimes moments like that get capitalized on to kind of help promote the company by using it as a storyline.
Absolutely.
And do you think that's good business or bad business?
I think anything that's from real life that you can use is always good business.
I mean, do you have any like boundaries or lines you'll never cross? Because I know sometimes this business can cross into a personal life and mess things up. I mean, look at the Benoit situation. No, son.
Well, that's a little extreme, Benoit, but other things too. I mean, I try not to bring up stuff like that.
Yeah.
Other things, try not to. There's good heat and there's bad heat, and there's different ways to insult people. As far as a heel wrestler can do, that some are good and some that go over the line, and it's about walking that line.
Right. Yeah, I do miss those days with the wrestling growing up, like back in the 80s. There was a fine line. And it wasn't often you saw anything backstage or heard about what happened backstage growing up. So when something like that did happen, it was really exciting for wrestling fans.
Absolutely.
So do you guys go along with that a lot? Like, you also have exclusive footage to feuds going on that kind of lead up to rivalries, or?
Oh, absolutely. Several of the ones we do, and we're big on making promo videos for our next shows. We're also big on video footage of what happens. And it all leads to creating interest in hopes of putting more fans in seats.
Yeah. I can imagine. So what do you like now about wrestling as opposed to the way it was, say, 10, 20 years ago?
Well, there's definitely a difference. I think the athleticism today is by far and away better than it was 20 years ago. I think 20 years ago would have been 97. Of course, that's one of my favorite years of wrestling history. You have the NWO going wild, you have Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and it was definitely entertaining. The difference now is I think a lot of the guys are more athletic than they were even then. We are a little bit smaller, I'd say, across the board than they were 20 years ago. But that's not always a bad thing.
Right. And it was always fun rooting for the underdog growing up. You know, the smaller guy going against the bigger guy. You hope that the little guy will pull out the victory. And now it just seems like that element, that rooting, has changed a little bit. Because it doesn't feel like it's special and authentic anymore. It's corporated, you know what I mean?
Definitely is that. And, you know, one of the places, there's only really one major company, and that's part of it. There's not as many places for guys to work, and because of that, they have to do everything that that company says, and they can't always push the envelope the way they used to be able to in the past.
Right. You know, I have a lot of respect for the traditions and the values of the past than what I've learned and seen in today's age, because it doesn't take long to do the history on this business. It really doesn't.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you being in North Carolina, that's got to be a benefit, having Warzone Wrestling there, knowing that North Carolina is a state that it was not only part of the territories back in the day, but also to this very day still produces some of the greatest talent we see on TV or in the independent scene.
Well, there's definitely a lot of great talent across the country right now. In particular, I am very favorable of the talent that I see coming out of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and Tennessee.
Okay. Do you get questioned a lot about the flares at your shows when you're running out of North Carolina?
The flair, not so much. I mean, you gotta understand, there's a lot of famous people from North Carolina.
Right.
A lot of famous wrestlers. Flair's obviously at the top of the list, but Michael Jordan's from here too. The three things that the state's great at is wrestling, basketball, and NASCAR. So between those three, there's been a ton of celebrities. I mean, even guys like Edge live in North Carolina. Braun Strowman's from North Carolina. Ron Killian's R-Truth, North Carolina. It's a lot of guys from here. Honestly, probably the two best states all time for having talent would be North Carolina and probably Minnesota.
Yeah, I know one or two people that come out of there, but I got to brush up on locations and history.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ricky Steamboat's from North Carolina, too. I mean, I could go on and on and on. That list is extremely long. North Carolina wrestlers.
I can just imagine being in your shoes, how honoring it would be, and how much fun it would be to actually have a successful wrestling company in that state.
Oh, absolutely.
So we like to have a good laugh here on the show, and we like to always bring a little something different with our guests. So Jay, we know people like to play jokes. People like to rib and have fun. You know, that's part of the fun of a wrestling show, is you can get away with a lot more. Tell me of a favorite rib you ever witnessed or you've done to someone.
Well, all-time best to me is anytime somebody wins a championship, especially the first night, they better hold on to that title with their life. Because if they walk away from that belt for a second, somebody's going to grab it and hide it from them.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorite ribs. Seeing a new champion look for their new title. Of course, if you're that guy, you might not hold on to that title very long. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. Has that happened to you?
No, that never happened to me, actually.
They know better, right?
Hopefully so. Who knows?
So, tell us, does Warzone Wrestling, do they have a female division?
Absolutely.
Who are some of the stars and some of the guests that you've had there?
Well, we have Savannah Evans. She is fantastic. She trains at High Spot Wrestling School. One of the best females around. We have Danny Ferrara, who certainly is another one of the great young talents as far as women wrestlers. And Samantha Starr has wrestled for us as well on numerous occasions. She has a long family history of wrestling. Her mother's baby doll, and her uncle is Jake the Snake Roberts, and her dad is Sam Houston. So she certainly has a family legacy to live up to.
Wow. You know, it's great to hear Sam Houston's name. That's not a name you hear around too much, but man, that guy was always a hell of a worker.
Oh yeah, nice guy too. Met him a couple times.
So, Jay, we got a question. We ask all our guests in every season, and we're going to continue that tradition in this one. What advice would you want to give to someone who would want in the business, or is new in the business?
Well, and that is my advice as far as somebody who's new in the business would simply be for them to learn. And the best way to learn is to be around the right people. So you find who's successful, emulate what they do. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you can become friends with these guys and you can ride around the shows with them. I have a young guy who I am extremely excited to bring him onto our main roster. Hope you actually do an interview with this guy. He's got a very interesting story. His name is Malachi Matthews. And he just recently moved to South Carolina within the last 3 months. And one of the things that impressed me most about him was who he became friends with early on.
Okay.
And he became friends with some of the best talent around and started going to shows with them. And I'd heard about him and was thinking of bringing him in, but when he just showed up at my show with other wrestlers, it certainly helped him out. I got to introduce him, get introduced to him, realized that he was going to be a fit for our company, and we put him in a battle royal that night, and also then I immediately didn't contact him back, and he comes to the next show, same thing, cool as he could be, put him in another battle royal, and now we've got big plans for him in the future.
Nice. I hope we have him on the season. We're getting so many phone calls and emails since they heard about we're teaming up with Warzone Wrestling that there's a lot of people asking for people, or people willing to come and jump on very quickly.
Absolutely.
Well, if fans wanted to find Warzone Wrestling or follow the current update news and who knows what else they might come across, how can they find you?
Well, one of the best ways to find us is on Facebook. Go to Facebook and type in Warzone Wrestling, and you should find us pretty easily after that. One word, Warzone Wrestling.
All right. Well, fans, this kind of wraps up our time today with Mr. Jay Mays from Warzone Wrestling. You can look forward to many more episodes coming this season with many other great talents and superstars they got coming out of Warzone Wrestling. You can find us on Facebook. Just type in the search, the Turnbucklepad. Be really easy to find. And until then, fans, thanks again for joining the show and listening. I'm Mike Stolberg. This has been my guest, Jay Mays, and we're out of here.